Analyst Karima Brown joins us in studio for more. So, Karima, I'm looking at the COSATU statement. It says this feeble and inflammatory budget is a clear message to workers that the battle lines have been drawn.
Indeed, they have, Shahan. What we see Minister Tito Mboweni doing this afternoon is throwing the indebted middle class a lifeline. The very rich, like COSATU said earlier, should have been taxed more. That is my personal view. What the government is rolling the dice on, is the patience of the working poor, civil servants, particularly police, men and women, nurses, teachers, magistrates, prosecutors, and of course the unemployed. And I think that is the big gamble here. We could very well have a public sector wage strike because the first thing that is impacted on, given the slash in public sector funds, is the cyclical wage agreements that were concluded in 2018. They're supposed to mature now in their second and third year. And we know last night a meeting held between the Minister of Public Administration, Minister of Labour and Deputy Finance Minister with the various trade union federations, including SAFTU, ended in failure. Several unions issuing statements saying that they will not tolerate what they see as a reneging on the part of government on that wage deal. So the scene is set, Shahan, for a massive showdown with the public sector. And here's the kicker. The state is the largest employer in the country. So if you're going to go for your passport at Home Affairs, if you're going to report a rape at the police station, those are the people whose salaries are going to now be cut, and they have to deliver services to you. So it's a big gamble that Tito Mboweni has taken to put public sector workers, on a collision path with the state.
And then, of course, there are cuts, dramatic cuts to budgets for, health, education, transport, etc. And municipalities. And we have people who are complaining and protesting till this day about service delivery.
Shahan, you've put your foot right on the button issues here. So pre the budget, we saw people in Soweto, for example, people in other townships complaining about the high cost of electricity. And we know, of course, that costs are going to increase. What is also interesting is that the infrastructure spend has also been, put on hold, which means new roads, for example, dealing with the legacies of apartheid spatial planning is now going to take a back seat. So you're still going to have to get up at 4 o'clock to be able to get to work at 6 if you're living in Orange Farm. You're still going to wait for your Prasa train in Khayelitsha, and it's not going to be on time because none of those new stocks are going to be rolled out. So the implications for working people and for the working poor and for those looking for work doesn't look good. If you take hospitals, for example, how do you commit yourself to a national health insurance scheme if you are curbing spending on, the health services? The public health service is already crippling. So the finance minister might have appeased the rating agencies, but he has set himself up against the big public sector unions. And given that government is the employer, we might see huge instability, particularly, Shahan, when it comes to that period, June, July, because that's when wage negotiations happen. Now, politically, that's a dangerous time for the African National Congress because that's the time when it goes to its National General Council. And that's the review of President Ramaphosa's term in office. So you can already see that President Ramaphosa's detractors in the party are going to accuse him of not sticking to the resolutions adopted at Nasrec, which is radical economic transformation. So a perfect storm. The conditions are brewing for that.
And then how does that play out for the ANC going into the local government elections when they've made such unpopular decisions affecting the poor?
Shahan, that is the critical question. So one has to conclude that the African National Congress has made its calculations and said that the swing vote is actually the middle class for it. If you look at the last elections in 2016, municipal elections, it was that new black middle class that felt, under pressure by a non-performing, corrupt ANC municipal officer or government. And they, of course, voted with their feet. The ANC didn't get into power. We have a mess now as a consequence of the coalitions not being able to cohere, both in Johannesburg, in Tshwane, to say nothing of Nelson Mandela. So I think what the ANC is hoping is that if it throws the black middle class a lifeline, it will be able to restore confidence in that group of people. So it is banking that the indigent, that the working class will stick with it, and that given the fact that there's no tax increases for your middle classes, that that might retain them or regain the support amongst that group. But it's a very huge gamble. We're not sure if it is actually going to pay off. You could well just see South Africa exploding in series of protests that are no longer going to be peaceful. We already see what's happening in places like KwaZulu-Natal, where people burn down libraries because they want laboratories. And of course, you have populism then coming into the fore, people who can make promises that are not realizable, but because people are so desperate, they will cling to it. So it's a very risky game that Tito Mboweni has, begun and started.
All right, we're going to leave it right there. Thanks so much for the insight. Appreciate it. Karima Brown, a political analyst, also the anchor of The Fix.